Kelly, let's go live. Okay. We're ready as soon as I can get the men BSing in the hallway there to. Okay. Well, I haven't seen this mysterious amendment, but who wants to testify next for public comment? That'd be great. Come on up. Well, that'd be fun. Well, welcome and
Pointer sister.
thank you very much for your patience today as we work on the last Senate file in Corporations Committee. Who would like to go first?
Katie's green light's on.
Okay,
Well,
Katie. Kate, Ms. Legursky.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening. We'll be very, very quick and hopefully get you guys out of here early. I'm Katie Legursky with the Associated General Contractors of Wyoming. Our members are the one who build and maintain our roads, bridges, and highways. And trust me, we know better than anyone the conditions of our roads throughout the state of Wyoming. Wyoming has a state highway system valued at roughly $5.6 million, and we spend roughly 10% per year maintaining it in its current conditions. Roughly 73% of YDOT dollars are being spent on Wyoming State Highway System, which consists of roughly 7,700 miles with 1,959 structures on it. For fiscal year 23, Wyoming State Highway System is being funded by 72% federal dollars, 28% state funds, and $0 from the general fund. Keep in mind the national average is 31% federal funds and 69% state funds, so Wyoming is just the opposite. My members fear that if we see further increases in state federal funding formula, Wyoming will not be able to make the federal match. Wyoming's highway system is underfunded by $120 million per year just to maintain our system in its current condition. Because of this, YDOT is using a pavement preservation system to stretch their dollars. But this system is only effective when a road is in good shape so it can extend the life of the road. This is not a good use of the taxpayer's dollar since it only buys us time. Timely maintenance is the key. For every dollar not spent on timely preventative maintenance, $4 to $8 will be needed for a complete reconstruction a few years later. The Associated General Contractors are supportive of tolling I-80. With collecting a user fee for tolling on I-80 and spending that fee back on I-80, it would free up dollars to spend on all the other road, bridges, and highways throughout Wyoming. Did you know that driving on Wyoming's roads costs Wyoming motorists $151 million per year? That's $356 per driver per year in the form of additional repairs, accelerated vehicle depreciation, and increased fuel consumption and tire wear. From 2015 to 2019, 638 people died on Wyoming's highways, an average of 128 annual fatalities. Wyoming's traffic fatality rate of 1.44 fatalities per 100 million vehicle miles of travel is higher than the national average of 1.11. A 2017 AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety report found that for every $100 million spent on needed roadway safety improvements would reduce the number of traffic fatalities by 44 and serious traffic injuries by 760 over a 20-year period. In closing, roads and highways are the backbone of our economy, allowing Wyoming motorists to travel 9.6 billion miles annually and moving a significant portion of the 68 billion worth of commodities shipped to and from the state each year. But the conditions on Wyoming's systems are deteriorating at an alarming rate as the need for transportation improvements far outpace the amount of state and federal funding available. Therefore, we stand in support of this bill, and I would stand for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Legursky. Appreciate it. Any questions for our associated contractors? Thank you, Katie. Appreciate it.
One thing,
Oh, excuse me, Senator Case.
could we get a copy of your testimony if it's written?
You bet, Mr. Chairman. I'll be
I
happy to
especially
email
like
it
the
out.
statistics about the highway deaths and how the expenditures on the highway prevent deaths. I'd love to know more about that.
Yeah,
be
there's no
happy, Mr.
copyright on that. It's okay for us to have it?
You bet, I'll be more than happy to send that to you with the study.
Thank you very much. Anything else for Ms. Legursky? Thank you, Katie. Good evening, Ms. Furch. Thank you for your patience.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity tonight. I'm Sheila Furch with the Wyoming Trucking Association. Excuse me, the members of the Wyoming Trucking Association oppose Senate File 160. Most of you, some of you, have heard this testimony before, maybe more than once. And I want to stress at the beginning that we certainly appreciate the efforts of the legislature to address Wyoming's infrastructure funding issue. Highways are where our businesses work, and it's important that they are good and efficient and safe. So we understand how important it is to adequately fund a highway system, but we don't think tolls are the answer. My members have supported, both at the federal and the state level, increased fuel taxes, and with no diversion from the highway fund, because that's where a lot of the problems have come. As an industry, we oppose tolls in general, but we specifically oppose a toll on current highway capacity. The industry views tolls as a non-productive and overly intrusive means of raising revenue, with the possibility of causing more harm to commerce than can be justified. Tolls on the interstate system, whether current or new capacity, can reduce the efficiency of that very system, increase shipping costs, and make interstate travel more expensive and less convenient. Tolls can impact regional competitiveness and impact business location decisions. Even with today's technological advances, tolls are expensive to administer. Recent studies indicate the cost of administering and collecting a toll can be 7 to 16%, while administering and collecting a fuel tax is less than 1%. No matter how they're implemented, assessed, and collected, tolling is a massive expansion of government. Tolls can certainly be viewed as double taxation, a tax collected to use a system that has already been paid for with registration fees and fuel taxes. We also have a lot of concern about the diversion caused by tolling I-80. Diversion is often downplayed, but it will be an issue. If commercial vehicles divert to other routes in other states, Wyoming will not only lose the projected toll income, it will also lose the current registration fees and fuel taxes those commercial vehicles already pay. If they divert to other highways within the state, that will shift the impact of the traffic to highways that are not prepared for that volume of traffic, exacerbating highway funding problems and traffic impact to those other corridors within the state. Shifting the problem doesn't solve the problem. Businesses along I-80 have invested significant resources to be strategically located along that corridor. Diversion from the implementation of a toll could be catastrophic to those businesses. We recognize the adoption of this legislation, it will not result in an immediate toll of I-80. There are many other steps that will have to take place, including approval from the federal government through a pilot program scenario. But this is a serious step toward providing framework necessary for a toll on I-80. The bill itself says this is granting authority to toll I-80. And I do, in closing, just want to point out a few places within the bill itself where we have some questions or concerns, if that's all right, Mr. Chairman. On page 5, line 11, we would just like some clarification of what other traffic is. On page 10, line 13 through 15, the language indicates that subsequent toll rates may generate revenues necessary to fund any impact assistance program available to local governments. We'd like a better understanding of what that impact assistance program might be, and want to point out that it's our understanding that federal law limits the expenditure of toll revenues to the actual toll road itself.
Ms. Furch, can you back up real quickly?
Certainly.
And give me those two references on page 5.
Sure. On page 5, line 11,
Okay,
it's the other traffic.
okay, and then,
And on page 10, line 13 through 15, with the impact assistance.
thank you.
On page 11, lines 6 through 9, impacts of different vehicles on the road surface. We certainly understand that there will be different toll rates for different vehicles but our concern is with some of the misinformation that continues to be circulated concerning the impact of commercial vehicles versus passenger vehicles. It causes the industry a great deal of concern. On page 11, lines 16 through 19, we don't disagree that the fines should be applied to the project, but is that even possible? because currently traffic fines don't go to the highway fund. Page 11, lines 21 and 22. And certainly earlier today, Senator Case made a lot of sense when he said, certainly we don't want to toll highway patrol and snowplows and that type of thing. But anytime we start talking about who's going to be exempt, we just want to make sure we're very clear on that. Page 12, line 1 and 2. Again, we would like some clarification on the free minimum travel. This appears to be an effort to address exempting local traffic with a creative twist in hopes of not violating the Commerce Clause. We're interested just in hearing more details about that, because I know the sponsor is very sensitive about treating interstate and intrastate carriers the same, but we do have concerns about any kind of a violation when you're treating local traffic differently. And page 12, lines 4 through 8. Similar language has been in previous bills, and we don't disagree that this would be helpful information, but again, some clarification on the impact assistance. Is this basically assistance to local governments, or is it assistance to local businesses that have been negatively impacted because of the implementation of the toll? And again, how would it be funded if the funds have to go to the toll road itself? And finally, Mr. Chairman, page 15, lines 15 through 17 gives us pause. Restrictions as outlined in this language have the ability to require certain vehicles to use the toll lanes with no alternate choices available to them, and that's not acceptable to the industry. In closing, Mr. Chairman, in 2020, the trucking industry in Wyoming paid approximately $232 million in state and federal highway taxes. The industry paid 64% of all of the taxes owed by Wyoming motorists, despite trucks representing only 18% of the vehicle miles traveled in the state. A typical 5-axle tractor semi-trailer combination in Wyoming pays $6,838 in annual state highway user fees and taxes, plus another $8,906 in federal highway user fees and taxes. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Ms. Furch, same thing on your end of things. Would you be willing to share some of those facts and figures you
Certainly.
provided tonight?
Certainly.
Appreciate that. Questions for the Wyoming Trucking Association? Senator Barlow. Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, one comment on the fines. By Constitution, those are going to have to go to the common school fund of the county, and then it goes into our whole education system. That's the way it'll have to turn out. That's a relatively minor point here. The question I would have for you is, I-80 is deteriorating. We're getting ourselves in bad trouble there. We can't afford to fix it the way it is now. I don't think you can raise the taxes high enough. I don't think the rest of the state will stand for raising the taxes high enough on the existing system that they'll have to pay to subsidize the commercial traffic on I-80, the interstate traffic. I just don't think they'll do it. I think that solution is infeasible. What else do we have? I think if we let it just deteriorate, sooner or later, we're going to have some disasters there. You're going to see long stretches of the highway with reduced speed limits, additional closures, all kinds of problems. I think the only responsible thing is to take this step, because I don't see another solution. Do you?
Ms. Furch, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Scott, I appreciate those comments, because we're as concerned as you about the deterioration of our highway systems, and we understand that funding those infrastructures is going to be tricky. Long-term solutions, perhaps as we look towards the future with some of the federal funds that aren't being made available to the states to support the federal interstates, is part of the issue.
Anything else for Trucking Association? Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the one thing I did hear was fuel tax. So what does a fuel tax have to be based on our current system that would take care of the deficit we have and cover the cost of closed roads, poor road conditions, wear and tear on the vehicles, and lives lost. So what is that fuel tax that gets us to the point of where we have roads in the Wyoming? Thank you.
Ms. Furch, do you have any wag
Mr.
at
Chairman,
all?
I don't know that. I would depend on YDOT to have those figures. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that.
Ms. Legursky, let me go to you on that one. Do you have a factor, a figure that you have calculated over the days and weeks behind that give us an indication of what kind of deficit we're looking at? Yeah. Did you phone a
Mr.
friend?
Chairman?
Yeah, thank you.
I did phone a friend. One set of fuel tax brings in approximately about $7 million, with 2/3 of that going to the Wyoming Department of Transportation and the remaining going to the city, towns, and counties. So about 4.6 for every 1 cent going to Wyoming Department of Transportation. So with a deficit of $120 million short that YDOT spends, you can divide that by 4.6 million. So roughly an increase about 26 cents in fuel tax, almost
20-some
doubling our
cents.
fuels tax.
20-some cents per gallon in order to.
Additional.
That's what I meant. Thank you, Senator. And so, and that's diesel and gasoline, I'm assuming. And that 120 that you referenced, Ms. Legursky, that is per year deficit spending on the roads, correct?
Mr. Chairman and Senator Landon, that's $120 million per year just to maintain our roads in our current condition. That is not to improve our roads. That's just to maintain them in their current condition.
Thank you for that clarification. Any further questions for
And-
the contractors or for the trucker?
And Mr. Chairman,
Senator,
if
go
I
ahead.
might ask that analysis regarding the necessary fuel tax, sort of static and on the bottom end, and doesn't consider the increasing issues of electric vehicles in our systems, which we haven't figured out how to solve.
I'm looking back at Senator Pappas, who has been alongside for the past couple of years, and even before that, still serves, I believe, with Senator Boner. Is that correct? Are you still on transportation, Senator? Would you like to come up, Senator? I would welcome any thoughts you have to share with us tonight on this.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
that.
Yes, I did want to make a few comments, and I appreciate the testimony from, closer, yeah.
Real close.
I forgot.
It's so hard
The
to
room.
hear in here, Senator. Thank you.
Yeah. So I do appreciate being able to testify along with my friends here from the trucking industry and the construction industry, because they're both important to our transportation system here in the state of Wyoming. When I very first learned about this years ago when I was on transportation, I was actually against it. Okay, I thought there was other ways we could come up with some funds. I was at that time particularly looking at a road usage charge. And I sat on a committee along with these ladies, and that a subcommittee that YDOT put together, took out of their own hide, and we had a little task force and did a whole interim of subcommittee meetings, came up with what we thought might work. Eventually, none of the folks at the table liked it because it really needed to become a regional or a federal program. They didn't think Wyoming could do it alone. Although there are some states, Oregon, Utah, that have some pilot programs in a road usage charge business. But once I found that didn't work, and then certainly we failed to raise the gas tax that we wanted to fail 15-cent gas tax, if you recall. That didn't pass. I'm back to this. I understand with Ms. Furch the issue that the trucking industry has on tolling, and because I'm a big supporter of the trucking industry, but I don't know of another way to provide funds to go to our road. The gas tax is unsustainable. Okay? If you look at construction costs, they're going this way. If you look at, uh,
Gas tax revenue?
gas tax, it's going this way. And NCSL has a great report on, you got to 2040, it's almost a $60 billion nationwide divergence, and it just keeps getting bigger. Gas tax is unsustainable. We may put 20 cents on the gallon, and we may get back by a few years. It won't happen for the future. That's just not sustainable. So we have to come up with another system. Frankly, this is the only one that I see plausible right now, because all our community partners don't like the road usage charge, not ready for prime time. So that's why I've supported this one, because I don't know what we're going to do. We have, you heard $120 million on, that's just horizontal construction, right? Roads and bridges. But YDOT has a $350 million a year issue. Aviation, WildLink, everything else that we have YDOT do, they're $350 million in the hole. They had a study that we thought it was 135 million, turned out to be 350 million. So, you know, we're talking about a $700 million deficit per biennium. To me, that almost sounds like our education structural deficit. So do we have another structural deficit? I think we do. Thank you.
Senator,
It's late. I won't belabor it, but thank you.
appreciate you coming tonight. Senator, you bring a lot of veteran leadership off the Transportation Committee, and we appreciate that. Thank you. I'm going to ask if there's anyone else who wants to testify on this bill. Debbie, is there anybody online that would like to testify? Let's go to the online testimony then. Very difficult for me to hear. I apologize.
Mr. Gagliardi.
Okay. Tony, good evening. Welcome. Appreciate you being here tonight. Mr. Gagliardi, please take it away.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm Tony Gagliardi. I'm the Colorado State Director, or I'm sorry, the Wyoming State Director. I wear two hats. Wyoming State Director for the National Federation of Independent Business. I represent approximately 2,700 small business owners in Wyoming. As many of you know, NFIB has been before you for several years on several occasions. We poll our members. We go out with ballots and surveys, and we poll our members on these issues. A position taken on an issue is not one that I choose. The issue I don't choose. Those issues and positions are taken by our membership. At the present time, over 65% of our membership oppose tolling. They don't think it's the right solution. And I'm going to try to keep my testimony as quick as possible. It's been a long day for everybody here. Toll road proponents are fond of referring, well, we have fond of referring to the new money that flows to highway projects. That new money comes from the same tired old wallets that pay existing highway user fees and gas taxes. The difference is the highway users will pay twice, once in taxes and again in tolls. There are billions of gas tax dollars being siphoned off for non-highway purposes or covering government deficits. Anyone who thinks tolls will be any less likely to be usurped for non-highway purposes is not a student of history. As for building new highways with this new money, most new toll roads aren't going to be new roads at all. They're going to be existing interstates or interstate corridors converted to toll roads, the same corridors and the same roads for which we've already paid. And with that, I'm happy to answer any question. One suggestion I would make, I don't know if this committee or if YDOT has ever dug into the issue. And that's what's known as transpons, Transportation Revenue Anticipation Notes. Those have been known to work. And I'm happy to provide any information I can on those.
Mr. Gagliardi, thank you very much for your testimony tonight. Any questions, committee? Really appreciate you hanging in there late with us tonight. Tony, thank you.
I always enjoy you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, anybody else want to testify online tonight? Okay, we're gonna listen to the direct. Come on up, Director. You betcha.
That's what
Thank
I'm
you.
listening to.
The senator stepped out of line, I bet.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, Luke Reiner, Director YDOT. Just because I know this data will be used on the floor if this comes out of this committee, Senator Pappas was exactly correct in his 350 million per year. That was a study that we had several years ago. We have since updated that number with IJA, which dropped it down a bit. And so I would just like to provide you with that data. It's about 264 because we took the IJA amounts and reduced the 350. And so his memory is exactly correct. But I just wanted to make sure that I got you the right data and we speak with one voice.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Go ahead, Senator Scott.
264, did I hear it right? Or
And that's per year.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Scott, that's correct. Now, remember, that's YDOT all. So, which is a very, here we're talking about roads, but, there's really 5 divisions within YDOT and one funding source, or very few funding sources. And so that does become the discussion of where the money goes.
Director, thank you. Senator Case.
Could toll revenues be potentially used for a portion of the communication system that serves YDOT? Your people are shaking their head back there. You better turn around and look. She is.
Mr. Chairman and Senator Case, I suspect that they're shaking their head like this because the
They're not
rule
nodding.
that we know of is that the tolls collected must go to the road that must go to maintain the asset that you're tolling for. Now, it's an interesting question because there are some safety implications with communications along that corridor. But I would say generally, we should say we'll focus on maintenance of the horizontal asset.
I like the way the senator looks under every rug, though. I mean, it's very important. Okay,
All right,
Director, thank
Mr.
you very
Chairman.
much. We're going to close testimony on the bill. Senate File 160. I didn't have my reading glasses on, but Senate File 160. What's your pleasure, committee?
Chairman, do pass?
Senator Scott moved the bill. Discussion? Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I will be supportive of the bill, but Mr. Chairman, what I'd like to do is strip this bill down to authorization, study, and come back to the legislature. Take out the bonding, all the bonding, funding mechanisms and all that. All the funding mechanisms, all that out of it, Mr. Chairman. So it is we've been, and I think it can be done actually by fairly quickly walking through the bill. And I've actually spoken to the sponsor, and if he's not comfortable doing it now, I will hold back. I will have a formal amendment. I'll take it to him. He can decide if he wants to do it on the floor as a committee of the whole amendment. So I will support it coming out of this committee either way, and I'd be glad to walk through the bill and just tell you conceptually what that would look like. Mr. Chairman, your prerogative. Thank you.
I'm intrigued. I'm looking at 2 of the other members of the committee. Knowing the hour, I'm more intrigued if we work it a little bit later, but Senator Case.
Mr. Chairman, I am not opposed to getting a stripped-down bill that does what we need. I didn't draft this bill. I worked with Heather Jarvis when she was staff in transportation, and I know she worked with the department a lot. So I think a lot of this language actually came from the department. And I'm okay with stripping it down to get what we need, but I don't want to mess it up. And so could.
Senator, I'm kind of in the same spot. I just want to be really careful. That's why I keep looking back at the Department of Transportation. I like where you're headed, Senator. I want to make sure that we get what we need so that we can, and we won't lose this language. I mean, we can pull that in later. I'm sure is what your thought is, Senator. Further thoughts?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I think exactly to the point, some of the testimony, well, what does this really mean? Well, what does this really mean? Well, actually, my amendment takes all those questions out of that. We're not having to deal with this minutia for something we won't have to actually consider for 4 or 5 years, because the planning process will take, at least by the timeline we saw, several years. So, and it comes back to currently the way the bill is laid out, it comes back for authorization anyway, and we'll have time to understand because we're having annual reports back. So, Mr. Chairman, what I'd respectfully say is I will sit down with the department. We have tomorrow and Monday for general file. I will sit down with the department between now and if we want to go to the majority floor leader and ask it to be held until Monday, I will have several days to go with them, say what is the minimum we need. I will bring that in consultation. I'll bring that to the good sponsor of the bill, and then he can decide how he wants to proceed on the floor. If he wants to take the full package, he takes the full package. If he's comfortable with a stripped down version, to take to the floor and say, hey, folks, we had a grand idea, now we got a better idea. It's more precise, it's more precision to what we want to accomplish. Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to do that and vote the bill out today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate that. I'm kind of leaning that way, but I'm looking at the sponsor. I want to go to your wishes, Senator Case.
Mr. Chairman, I want to get the department to have the authorization they need to do this. I'm not necessarily opposed to what Senator Barlow's thinking. He certainly has a good track record in this committee. He's proven himself. I think we could start getting him full pay now. I think it'd be a good idea. He's made his way in here. He's never, but I am a little worried about without listing those individual things in the master plan. I'm worried that people will lose the vision of the big ideas. And so, but I'm willing to let you take a shot at it.
Senator Scott, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I think that you'll have a better chance of selling it with a stripped down version on the floor. But I would say consult with the department, because it may be the feds have specific requirements they need to see in a law before they're willing to take the first step. So that would be the main caution I would have on the stripped down version. And I think if you're going to do it, the risk in a bill like this is somebody will get to picking at the innards of it on the floor and filibuster it, basically, with the best of intentions. But that's the risk.
That's very wise counsel, and really appreciate both of you tonight. I think rather than trying to track in a standing committee amendment, Senator, I think let's go. I will offer to be of any help that I can be, having just come off chairing the Transportation Committee. And Senator, if you're okay with that, we'll go ahead, Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'll take some latitude from the committee to work with the department. I will bring it to the entirety of the committee, and certainly the sponsor will decide what components he is willing to put forth or not put forth. I will not bring an amendment to the floor. Personally, I'll bring it to the committee individually. Sponsor can decide how he wants to proceed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That's the gold standard. Can't ask for more than that.
We appreciate that. Thank you, Senator. Okay, are we just about ready to go to a vote tonight?
Yep.
Okay.
Question on the bill.
Let's take roll on Senate File 160.
Senator Barlow. Aye. Senator Boner.
No, yeah,
No, right, Chairman?
that's correct. Senator Boner left a no.
Senator Landon.
Aye.
Senator Scott.
Aye.
And Mr. Chairman.
And aye. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for being here.
We're done with Senate files?
We are finally done with corporations for the day.
And we only started at 7 this morning, so.
Oh, comma, my goodness.
We could have done 12 hours in 4 minutes. What a great committee, though. I'm so proud of you guys. And we finished all our Senate files, and we had the heaviest workload of any